finally ready to go. And I realize now I need to actually time the ads correctly. Okay, do that later. Anyways, bottom right of Site Delta, we do have the orange Terran. It is Spirits. And in the top left, we have the red Protoss Trap, who
Warning. Fully under this program's detected in
is still on Gen G. Really? Are you sure? Are we good? Are we sure about that? Hey, Kaelaris! Thank you very much for dropping by and gifting 5 subs while you're at it. Appreciate it. One of the contributors to the creation of this tournament's Kaelaris. If you ever meet Kaelaris, just go, Kaelaris, Kaelaris. And he'll smile a big grin and he'll love it.
Warning. Fully under this program's detected in com server 04.
Thank you, Scoutsy Justice, for the gifted sub to Kaelaris as well. So we got ourselves some Korea versus Europe on the North American server Central. If my understanding is correct, a lot of the times the Koreans do have a argument to be made that Western is actually still more balanced because their ping is higher to Central than the Europeans' ping is to West or something like that. But that's obviously not like a clear-cut thing, and there's been some complaints across the years about forcing the Europeans to play on Western, but yeah. Central is not ideal for any player, to be super clear, but it's actually, yeah, a little less ideal for the Koreans. So as far as Trap goes, do we consider him that much better than Spirit that the ping problem is irrelevant? I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't go that far. I know that Trap has actually been working his way back up to the expectations we've had for him in the past. You know, he's actually been beating some really good players, winning some of these Open Cups, playing in the Asia one before it, obviously, we're in the off season. So I know that he's good, but I would hesitate to say that he's as good as he was before he left for the military. If he was, then I absolutely would give him an edge over Spirit. But then again, Spirit has also improved since 2021 whenever Trap actually went to the military. So I would say this is kind of an even matchup. And because the ping is a problem for both of them, we'll see how that works out between the two. No one doing anything significantly different as far as choices. We got Twilight Council coming down for Trap. Okay, 2 Adepts. Oh, there's the first Adept. First Adept already on the way. It's going to see that it's a barracks, but it actually cannot see the factory or the starport. Oh, I was going to say this... This feels like a different. This is the Twilight Council and the Robo timing were definitely different enough that I was like, okay, and it is going to be for a Dark Shrine. I mean, Max Pax pulls out the 2-Vase Dark Shrine build every so often against a Terran. Someone else was doing it pretty reliably as well recently, and I forget who it was, but it feels like it's almost being a comeback. This is still not something that I think pros especially default to. If you're in a ladder match, the first thing you're probably thinking of against a Protoss is if they're going to cheese me with DTs. But for the pros, this is still not a... You know, if it doesn't work, it puts you in a really unideal position. So it is a little hit or miss. So he's 2 gateways at the front. This looks like a 3-gate blink play that could possibly be a 4-gate blink play. If the first thing you're thinking of is blink and your priority is going to be on tank production, you might even skip the Raven because it's not that helpful versus blink, although I do say that most people don't skip the Raven, even if they know that it's a blink build, because it can be helpful. Obviously, this drop just saw exactly what it was, so that's always nice. DT warped in defensively to help out. 3 probes do go down. And now that Raven is going to feel like the best thing ever as it times out perfectly. There's not that many units, but there's also not that many DTs. If there were 4 DTs in here, I would be a little suspect about the Marines. Auto turret would definitely have to pop out to help, but with only 1 DT, yeah, the auto turret might as well just focus on the Warp Prism, which was a little late to because we also had Spirit trying to micro over on his side of the map. Looks like some SCVs did go down because the Natural was also hit by a DT. So both parties losing a decent chunk of their economy. It does look like Trap is taking worse damage. Well, I actually have to hold on a second and actually Wait for this DT to be picked up again, and wait for this DT to actually be pushed back. There's a scan available, but obviously that means no mules. Okay, now that that's happened, 7-11 on the probe kills and the SCV kills. Mules, but then the drop of Spirit died, putting him in the deficit for the resource loss. 2 more SCVs actually being a world of difference, honestly. Like, the more that 2 SCVs go down every time the Warp Prism comes in, the better it is for Trap. Trap also managing to kind of sneak out a probe. Not that it was under fire, but just there was so much going on that a lot of the times that indirect damage, that significant delay on a 3rd Nexus is what's actually killer for the Protoss. 2 Archons morphed because we actually do need to worry about the counterattack. Raven leading the charge in a little bit of a dangerous situation. Archons fortunately don't kill it that fast. Looks like a 3-shot from 2 Archons. Didn't quite get it. It was 2.5. Raven, though, is now... It's 1 shot from death, from anything. Archons, Stalkers, a Sentry? Okay, well, there you go. Archons get the Raven. That seemed... I don't want to say obvious, but that kind of seemed like that was obviously going to happen. In Spirit, I guess just focusing on the timing right now says, I don't care if you get my Raven. I don't believe you're going to be warping any more DTs because you just warped in 4 or 3 more to actually make those Archons. And I guess that was a good call. 1 DT at a time could be the answer here. But Spirit has saved up at least 2 scans back at home, something that Trap probably figured he would do. Still getting the Raven out of the equation is good. No auto turrets to help out, no anti-armor missile that could have been collected. Now the shield batteries are ready, and this was a push that went full steam ahead no matter what it was up against, but doesn't really impact Trap's economy too much. Lose a Stalker here, but this is going to be a complete removal of Spirit's army. The reinforcements, definitely not a good idea. Definitely not a good idea. Unfortunately, Spirit, he was trying to pack up and leave, was probably hoping that some reinforcing tanks would have helped safeguard his exit. Instead, he just loses them. And Trap has won this game. I know it's a lot to say so early on, but it does feel very good for Trap. 2 Archons going to bully some production because while the infrastructure is finally getting online, it really has only just... 3rd CC delayed for a little while longer is nice. Archons, you're going to be able to actually kill some SCVs with them without committing them. They do have a little range, and they're a little bit tankier than a DT. And the Warp Prism obviously still has that range pickup. So yeah, this is going to be a consistent annoyance. You can really see Trap easily getting his micro back into form. But his reads on the game also looking very good. His 3rd base has now been saturated on the minerals at the very least. 4th base is up, but is actually going to be attacked, so it might not be building for very long. Only Stalkers so far to defend. No shield battery to help out. Just Stalkers against... Oh, not +1, actually. Combat Shields also was not finished, and the Stalkers really having a good time right there as they kill both the Medivacs. That was actually a significantly weaker drop than I realized. No +1, no Combat Shields, and the Stalker numbers were also higher than I realized, too. And the entire time, Spirit has had difficulty tracking these Archons. 25 SCVs have gone down. I believe just by the Archons. I have to imagine at some point some SCVs like were pulled to the main, and then the micro wasn't there to pull them away from the Archons that had shifted positions, so they were all types of clumped up on a 1 mineral patch. That was probably how we got that high. Because I can't imagine, like, I feel like if you actually didn't move your SCVs at all, I feel like you couldn't get 25 SCVs from an Archon shot, even no matter how good the micro is. They had to have been stacked at some point. That's an insane number of SCV kills. And Trap is just dominating, man. I'm actually a little surprised that Spirit's still in this game. I think it was a little hard to call right after the DT harassment and the drop harassment, which is why I held on for a second. But yeah, that's wow. He just tore Spirit apart. Maybe he is as good as he used to be. This all started with the DTs doing more damage than you would hope. And then Spirit did choose a kind of gambly option. I'm going to say really gambly option, actually. I feel like him going for his attack it obviously did not pan out. Now, I'm not going to say that it would never pan out in a million years because, 2 Archons getting injured, the shield batteries weren't ready, more reinforcements are, not available. Like, if he had actually been able to push with all of his army immediately onto the third base and force the army to react from trap, I do think there's something there. The problem is that wasn't really, like, the army was not forced to engage. Trap played that really patiently and really well and just like, my next will take some damage, but that's fine. I got a little bit of time, and that's all I need. So, yeah, in hindsight, I think you absolutely keep that Raven alive in the natural, and insert in the main base. You absolutely keep your army at home, and then you have no problem divvying it up to ensure that no damage is taken from DTs or Archon drops. But hindsight's 2020. Playing this game is absolutely not 2020. I don't really know how prescription works with eyes, so I'm not even going to try and say what it actually is. In the top right, we do have Spirit now down 1. In the bottom left, it is Trap. Despite being a person who actually has glasses, I have never once understood what the 2020 60-20 means. As far as I understand, it's like what is like 20 feet vision for like a good eyesight is like it's like 60 feet away for someone with bad eyesight. But then I don't know which number is it. 60-20? Is it 20-60? What if it's 10-20? Is that a thing that exists? I don't know. And I don't know what my prescription is either. I actually had my first eyeglasses question. For when you start wearing glasses, you don't feel like a person who wears glasses. I don't know if anyone else has experienced this. So even though technically I had the option of wearing glasses since I was like 13, I didn't actually start wearing them until I was 28. So State, I think, asked me in the green room, he was like, "How blind are you?" And I was like, oh, that's a question you ask glasses people. Oh, I'm a glass person. Shit, okay. And then I had to try to describe how blind I was. Which I don't think is super blind, but I do legally need to wear them if I drive, so maybe it is. Probe is going to get that last second scout into the main to see that it is in fact a command center, which is quite nice. I mean, it saw that it was a 1 gas, 1 racks, probably expand, but there is a factory expand that only uses 1 gas, and then you go into a lot of Hellions, especially if you don't get a Reaper initially too. Like, you can have enough gas to get the factory and a reactor. So it's really nice, actually, that Trap got back in there to confirm the command center, and his probe lived too. That's basically perfect. There's zero doubt in Trap's mind as to what the opener is of his opponent. And he probably would have guessed correctly what it was and not really been too thrown off on his build order if he had been a little indecisive, like, oh, it's a factory, it's expansion, it's a factory. Like, you'd probably still be okay, but it is really nice to have all the information. You know you're blind when you need your glasses to find your glasses after misplacing them. I'm not Velma blind. If my glasses get knocked off, I'm not on the floor being like, my glasses. But all I had to do was walk, like, behind the couch of the green room and look at the TV to be like, okay, now that's blurry. Trap did not retire. He went to the military, which is a forced mini retirement, I suppose. But a lot of StarCraft 2 players do end up coming back, at least for a limited amount of time. If their true love was Brood War, then they probably go back to Brood War instead. But even TY, who actually said that he liked StarCraft 2 more, but like he's really more popular in Brood War. It's more financially viable for him. Like, he also did both, and that is unfortunate for Trap, who does actually get a little over-aggressive. Kind of just assumed he knew what it was doing. I was wrong. No, the Adept does get into the main, which is getting that full scout, which is kind of worth the loss of the Stalker. Kind of. Adept also going to be looking for at least 1 or 2 SCV kills, 2 of them within 1 shot, but the Adept not going to be able to get those. I feel like a Scout plus 2 SCVs would have made that Stalker's death totally viable, but oh well. In the grand scheme of things, probably a minor note. 2 Stalkers instead of 3, 2 Cyclones. I would have been more comfortable dealing with this with 3 Stalkers, that's for sure. It's going to see the, I think it actually just checked to see the medevac, so that was really nice. Going to pull back. As it pulls back, 1 or 2 more Stalkers get warped in, and He's still tracking this drop. He doesn't know quite what's in it, though. So 2 Cyclones opposed to 1 and a couple of, Marines might be a little surprised. But 1 Stalker goes down. Cyclone also gets killed. And the medevac is now below half health. So as long as Trap is getting his foundation set, so getting his 3rd Nexus and having some production, I think this is all okay. And he actually did go up to 3 gateways. So probably wary of Spirits pushing right when that stim finishes and medevacs pop out. This is not really what Spirit's doing. We just saw him play a TVP where he did have a push that really, despite knowing about it, Christianer still had trouble against it. It was still very powerful. But that was also without a Raven. That was on a shorter map as well. And so Trap, he has 3 gateways. Doesn't have to use them. It's nice. It's safe. It's not as greedy as 2 gates. But if you need them, you're very happy. Jesus. You're really happy that you have them. And if you don't need them, you don't need to warp in. Not until you're actually ready to go. And that charge is on the way. When charge is done, these tanks will be almost nullified. Observer's going to get in and get a full scout into the actual production setup. Right now, you'd be scouting mainly for that 3rd. Is it a 3cc or is it a 5 racks? Is he going to pull the SCVs? Like, what's happening? And that Observer is just all the information. Spirit looks to be a little wary of... I don't want to say wary of DTs necessarily, but that probably was on maybe in like the back of his mind, because his drop could not get into the main. Trap not only dealt with it, as in pushed it back, he also pushed it back long before it saw his main or even the 3rd intent. So this is the first time Spirit's getting a scout in the 3rd. Still doesn't know about the main. Clearly, it's past the DT time for typical Protoss versus Terran anyway. But you can still put a missile turret there because that helps out against any warp prism pressure, any observer that can just, float across the map. And also a little SimCity can be helpful. And, eventually, I'd say the next phase, the next time you're worried about DTs entering into this matchup is probably when the Protoss is getting to their 4th base. Then some Protosses get kind of a cheekier Dark Shrine. Some don't ever get one, even if they go up to 7 bases. Like Showtime seems to be one of those guys. But after you lost the game in a very frustrating manner, honestly, I feel like you'd be a little wary of it. The Raven did pop out, but it's not just an anti-DT thing. It's been harassing, or at least trying to, this entire time. Stalkers actually thought they could be a little more courageous than they should have been. Courage is just well-planned stupidity, of course. So they just look stupid now. They ran up the ramp. They wanted to, and the army was already there. So that was how many Stalkers killed? I think it was 4 Stalkers killed. Trap maybe having a little more difficulty in this game. Doesn't have near as much control over it. Spirit actually getting a drop into the main to be a little bit of a bother. 5 probes go down. Medevac Cyclone will be destroyed. But if that was any amount of distraction for this army to now get in position, that could be worth it. Widowmines get planted. Tank is sieged up. Widowmines popping off on the Zealots. Tank appropriately shooting the Stalkers. Now, ideally, it's still alive and helps out against the Colossus, but the Colossus is now no longer protected. Shield Overcharge trying to save the day. Not going to save the Colossus. It does, however, still activate for the rest of the units, which were cutting into the Marine count. Stalkers getting recalled to the main base as Trap realizes this is obviously the Terran's next move, but this is a very low unit drop. Injured as well. Another stim's going to injure them further, and Trap will take care of things while holding on to all 4 bases. So he did lose his own decent amount of units. That Colossus falling is usually a big deal. But 4 bases still up and running. Static defense still there as well. And the second Colossus popping out, just in case you were worried that lack of AoE was going to hurt you. But you also have this pretty big map. That means that Spirit doesn't get to be nearly as aggressive just over and over and over again. As he did have an army. He just had held it into the natural. So now Spirit's army going to be forced on the defense. Trap has a Colossus that could be coming through forward. I'm like 90% here. There you go. Okay, you just stay there then. All right, you chill. Colossus is going to chill for now. I was saying, like, you could have brought that Colossus forward and actually tried to hold the position, but that probably would not have been a very good idea. Spirit's macro was on point. His Marauder count is fairly high. And actually, what's much more annoying for Spirit to deal with is just multi-pronged attacks. So that was a very good call from Trap, who continues to expand rather aggressively. We've had this change up to this, Colossus mass charge lot very low gas style, which is exactly what Trap is doing. But even with that, I would say Trap is expanding more aggressively than most other Protoss doing the same thing, which I like. It's kind of mixing, it's like truly mixing the best of both worlds, both a AoE composition, you know, some Colossus at the very least, as well as that mass gateway composition, which if you're going to go mass gateway, if you think back to like Zest, like only 2 gases, right? You're going to expand in an incredible rate. And this is kind of, like I said, it's kind of becoming best of the both worlds. Dark Shrine is going to come down. I personally always think it's very useful, you know, and when you are kind of rich at this point, 4 bases, 7, 8 probes, more power to you. It's also legitimately one of the best ways to distract a Terran and get kills on actual buildings. So I hate it as a Terran, but you got to admit that it's very much required by the Protoss. I would say required. Again, like Showtime doesn't seem to like DTs, but anyway. We had a drop of Widow Mines. Whew! That was very close to getting the shot off on the probes being pulled away. Both of them now just kind of poking. There's not much to be done until both of them are maxed out and feeling a little more comfortable on the... I guess I was going to say the defensive position, but obviously now Trap is being offensive. So really it's Spirit trying to get as comfortable as possible defensively, getting his planetary, getting his missile turrets, getting his sensor towers. And then it's Trap trying to take this map control, eventually follow up, usually with disruptors, and then hold on to the map control, constantly making the Terran feel uncomfortable. And again, DTs are just an excellent addition to it. War Prism in the main base does seem to be taken down. Drop off a few Zealots. Spirit with plenty of units does respond, I would say, pretty appropriately. 11 SCVs, kind of a small cost to pay for making sure you focus on what is the bigger threat, which was 100% the army at the front, which Spirits, you know, pushed back and took some advantages to really scare Trap away. But Trap was only temporarily scared, regroups, collects more Zealots, get the 3rd Colossus on the front lines, continuing to poke and prod, using those Stalkers whenever it's clear that Spirit isn't truly engaging. And those Stalkers can come up and snipe a Marauder and back away. Once there's a real true engagement, then those Stalkers don't really want to be on the front line so much. Drop is going to cancel a 6th base, but that is a 6th. So I don't think Trap really cares. In fact, Spirit doesn't even know about the 5th. That's not a good sign. Oh, and Spirit's planetary just went down. I don't know if he tried to repair it or not, but it apparently was useless. War Prism coming in is going to be helpful to end this game, as it is looking very close to the end. Upgrades 2-1 versus 1-1. Trap hitting a very nice timing with the War Prism still intact. He has already taken down his opponent's economy, as well as more economy with DTs off to the right side. And he's about to take care of the army as well. Trap just looking incredible in this matchup. Spirit is not Europe's best TVP'er, but he is usually pretty reliable in the matchup. And he just got completely smacked around. It's an impressive performance from Trap, playing also off server.